Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today, entitled Mom Breaks My Friend's Phone Trying to Prove a False Claim. After that, Am I the Jerk for Leaving My Aunt Alone at the Pool with Her 3 Kids? And after that, Entitled Family Thinks They Own the Entire Beach. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen loses her phone. Don't try me, Mr. Reddit. So please smash that like button, and if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Entitled Mom Breaks My Friend's Phone Trying to Prove a False Claim. Okay, so this literally happened 20 minutes ago at the time of writing, and this story, unfortunately, is about my own mother. Yes. Anyway, let's get on with the story. My friend came over to my house to give me a trigonometry textbook for school, decided to stay for longer to play R6 with me on his laptop that he bought. Maybe 20 minutes go by, and we are in the room playing casual matches when my mom suddenly starts pounding at the door, demanding to be let in. I lock my door when I play video games because my mom has a habit of grabbing my mic while I'm playing and asking strangers what math they're doing in school. She's a math teacher and is super obsessed with math, but that's a story for another time. This time, she yells and says, "Where is my charger?" She starts banging on the door so hard, the door would probably break, so I get up and unlock it, only to be yelled at even more. My mom, "Where is my iPhone charger?" I think it's important to note, my friend and I don't use iPhones. We both use Android phones and have no need for iPhone lightning cables. Me, I don't have it. I wouldn't take it. I have no use for an iPhone charger. My mom, "Well, yes you do, so give it back." I don't say anything. My mom, "Then your friend has it." My friend, "I use an Android too. I wouldn't take your iPhone charger." Mom, "Well, yes you do, so give it back." Both of us don't say anything. My friend, "I have no use for your charger because my phone uses USB Type-C and you have a lightning port." My mom, "Well, it works for all phones. Show me your phone and I'll prove it to you." Before my mom can even say anything, she grabs his phone and storms into her room. Both of us are super confused and are trying to understand what logic she's using until she comes back into my room with her iPhone cable and his phone in hand. Yes, the cable she lost. My mom, "Well, explain this." She jams the iPhone cable into the phone. Aha! She throws it back to my friend and she once again demands for the cable back. Me, "Don't you have it in your hands?" My mom looks at her hands and realizes she has her own cable and turns red, but then shifts the blame back to us. "Well, you shouldn't be talking back like a smarty." I don't say anything. She storms off, knowing she just made a fool of herself, and we go on playing video games trying to forget what just happened because it made no sense. He leaves, maybe 5 minutes later, and everything goes back to normal until I get a text. It reads, "Dude, your mom jammed the cable in and broke my charging port." If you don't know what he just said, basically an iPhone cable is thin and a USB-C cable is thick and has a little thing inside the port for you to charge, and my mom jammed it in so hard she broke the pin thing. I told my mom and she refuses to believe that it was her fault. So yeah, I'll provide an update if anything changes, but that's what happened. If anyone is skeptical, I can post a video, but I don't know how, so you're gonna have to teach me how. Edit 1. If any of you are wondering, it's a Razer phone too, and he uses wireless charging to charge it. Also, my dad is trying to explain to my mom what she did and how USB-C and Lightning are not the same, but is failing miserably. Also, my mom is not insane all the time, but she can go from normal to insane Karen mode in 10 seconds. Edit 2. Geez, this is finally over. I explained to her that jamming it in broke the phone. Not convinced, I asked her if I could jam a micro USB one-sided, and she said no, and basically realized how dumb she was. She then reluctantly said that she would buy him a new phone, so we won. By the way, what do you have? iPhone or Android? Please let us know. The only phone that a true Karen would use is a... Am I the jerk for leaving my aunt alone at the pool with her 3 kids? I honestly don't think I'm the jerk here, but apparently I'm a horrible person. So I, female 18, have an aunt who has 3 kids, who are 2, 4, and 12. I don't see them very often or spend much time around them, but my family is doing a small 4th of July thing today, so we're all together at a local pool. Social distancing, masks unless in the water, etc. We're staying at my grandfather's house for a few days, and it's about a 30-minute drive from the pool. This morning when we came up, my grandfather and uncle, kid's father, went to play golf while my aunt took the kids to the pool. I drove myself to the pool in a different car as the aunt and kids usually swim for 6+ hours straight, and I didn't want to stay at the pool for that long. I made it known before we left that I was taking my separate car. I swam with the kids for about 4 hours, but then decided that I was ready to head back to the house. I got up to let my aunt know, and she freaked out. She told me that I was being impolite and rude by leaving, and that since she had bought me lunch, I had to stay. She didn't buy it. It was put on my grandfather's account. She said that I was going to make the kids upset and that she didn't want to have to take care of them alone. I told her that I was sorry, but I had stuff that I wanted to do back at the house. She started yelling in the middle of this public pool about how I was ungrateful for not helping and for leaving the kids, how I don't deserve to be up at the house, how I'm being a horrible family member. Of course, now the young kids are crying because mommy is yelling at their cousin and they don't know why. So I just turned around and left. My uncle and grandfather were already at the house when I got back. My grandfather thinks I'm in the right. They're her kids, not yours. If she can't be alone with them, that's a problem. But my uncle and grandmother are extremely upset that I left her at the pool alone to deal with them. 2/3 of the kids are fantastic swimmers. The youngest is the only one that needs help and to be watched a bunch. I honestly don't think I'm in the wrong, but my aunt isn't speaking to me, my uncle keeps making rude remarks, and my grandmother is passively aggressively saying things to the small kids like, "Oh, I know, I'll take care of you. OP isn't very nice, is she?" Am I the jerk here? What do you think? Should she have stayed, or was it okay that she left? Please let us know. How dare she leave her aunt like that? So ungrateful. Entitled family thinks they own the entire beach. Hi guys, this isn't my story, but a family friend of mine, and after she told me this story, I knew it belonged on here. I'm going to make this a two-parter since the first part is actually kinda long. Quick backstory. My family, who aren't involved in this story, and family friends own beach houses in a little bay area that eventually leads out to the ocean. There are several small piers within the boardwalk area where families can swim and jump off of the piers. They have netting surrounding the pier to indicate how far families can swim. Beyond the netting, that's where boats, kayaks, etc. can run. Unfortunately, on these piers, there have been some entitled people believing they own some of these piers because their beach house is right there behind it. I will admit, our family has had our beach house for over a century, passed down through several generations. Even though we have to walk down the street to get to this pier, I think if anybody deserves that pier, it should be us. Anyways, on to the cast of our story. We've got family friend, we've got family friend's neighbor, we've got entitled mom, entitled kid, and neighbor's daughter. The first part of the story happened to neighbor, who eventually told family friend what happened. After swimming hours are over at the pier, families like to go there to catch crabs. Only crabs that measure within a certain height can be kept. Because of the whole thing with social distancing, neighbor and neighbor's daughter went to try to find a good spot away from other families so they could crab. They actually got a really good spot at the end of the pier away from everybody else, and they set up their things there. They were only planning on catching a few crabs and then heading out. It was only a few minutes into their crabbing when the 15 to 16-year-old entitled kid came marching right on up to neighbor and neighbor's daughter. Entitled kid, "Hey, you're in my spot." Neighbor looked around, trying to find anything to show that the kid's spot was taken. Nets, cages, buckets, etc. But there wasn't any. They were the only ones there. Everyone else was on the other side of the pier. Neighbor, "I'm sorry, but there's nothing here to show that this is your spot." Entitled kid, "You need to leave, now. This is my spot." Neighbor, "Kid, this is public property. Nothing here is yours. We're only going to catch a few crabs and then leave. Please be patient." Entitled kid continued to whine to neighbor for a couple minutes before finally leaving. Neighbor couldn't believe how immature this kid was acting. Her daughter was only 10 and was acting more mature than him. Not even a few minutes later, entitled kid came back. And who does he come with? Entitled mom, who was a full-on Karen. The blonde, "Let me speak to your manager" hair, the sunglasses, long nails, etc. She went right over to neighbor and did that throat-clearing thing nobody likes. "Excuse me, I heard you two made fun of my son and won't let him have his spot back." Neighbor, "We never insulted him, and there was nothing here to show that this is his spot. We're only here to catch a few crabs and then we'll head out." "No, you need to leave his spot now." Lady, we're not going anywhere. Entitled Mom, pointing to a house. You see that? That's our house right there. My son has claimed this spot on the pier as his own. You must obey that, or I will tell the authorities. Neighbor, there's nothing marked on this pier that states this spot is your son's. This pier and the entire beach and boardwalk is public property. I myself can call the authorities on you for disturbing us. It looked like Neighbor had finally put Entitled Mom and Entitled Kid in a corner. Just then, Neighbor's daughter, completely oblivious to the argument and focused on crabbing, pulls out a small crab from her net and shows it to Neighbor. Before they could say anything though, Entitled Mom quickly butts in. Give us that crab you just caught. It will make up for all the trouble that you've caused. Neighbor, it's too small to be kept. Entitled Mom, who told you that? It's an actual law here. There's nothing here to prove that. Neighbor pointed to a sign that was on a pole directly behind them, explaining the rules of catching crabs. Neighbor, if you owned this pier like you claim you do, you would have known that. Entitled Mom didn't say anything, but tried to snatch the small crab out of Neighbor's daughter's net. Neighbor's daughter started shaking the net over the water, hoping the crab would let go. Thankfully, before Entitled Mom got to her, the small crab let go and plopped back into the water. Entitled Mom let out an ungodly howl at the sight, as if she had just watched her precious Entitled Kid get attacked by a shark or something. Finally, she grabbed Entitled Kid and stormed away from them. Neighbor and Neighbor's daughter didn't stay too long after that and didn't catch any crabs. They both just wanted to get the heck out of there after that. Part 2. Town makes new law because of Entitled Mom. So Family Friend took her family down, her husband, mother, kids, and grandkids, down to the same pier as Part 1 so that they could go swimming. Because Family Friend's mom was elderly, both Family Friend and her mom decided to stay under the pavilion in the shade while watching everyone else swim. At first, everything was going good, and it looked like everybody was having a good time. Then, cue Entitled Mom and her family of over 20 people gathering inside the small pavilion, setting up food, tables, and chairs directly behind Family Friend and her mother. They couldn't even move or get out because of how close they were and how crowded everything was. Family Friend could tell this was the person Neighbor had mentioned before because of the way Neighbor described her. Family Friend still tried to be civil, and when she saw Entitled Mom, she tried to ask her nicely to move. Family Friend, hi, would you mind moving your party over a little bit? My mom and I barely have any space to move. Entitled Mom, excuse me, we happen to live here, so we can do what we want. Family Friend, this pavilion doesn't belong to anybody. It's public property. Whatever. We're still not going anywhere. Family Friend isn't a fan of arguing, so she and her mom just tried sucking it up and continued to watch their kids and grandkids play in the water. Unfortunately, this was short-lived as Entitled Mom's family started blasting music and yelling inside of the pavilion. Then Entitled Kid came along in a jet ski. The entire family saw him and began cheering, screaming his name, etc. Entitled Kid came extremely close to the netting on the other side of the dock and began doing figure eights on his jet ski, splashing water on other swimmers nearby and creating huge waves. Depending on the time of the day, high tide or low tide are, the water at the other end of the dock could get very deep and any kid at the end could probably struggle swimming down there. Luckily, Family Friend told us that everybody at the end of the dock quickly got out when Entitled Kid started doing this, and her kids and grandkids weren't that deep in the water, so everybody was fine. After a few minutes, Entitled Kid finally left and everybody went back into the water. But Entitled Mom's family still hasn't calmed down. Finally, Family Friend and other beachgoers saw the flashing lights of a police car pull up to the beach area. Everyone smiled as they knew Entitled Mom and her family were going to get in trouble. Entitled Mom and her family saw the police car and attempted to ignore it, but suddenly grew quieter. The officer got out of the car and approached Entitled Mom. Officer, hello, ma'am. May I have a word with you? Entitled Mom, all innocent-like. What's wrong, officer? Officer, I have been receiving numerous complaints throughout the past half hour in regards to your party causing a disturbance. What? We haven't been doing anything. Family Friend, officer, they've been yelling and screaming the entire time they've been here, blasting music, and somebody from their family came by on a jet ski extremely close to the dock and started showing off. Entitled Mom, mind your own business. Family Friend, how can I when I'm less than a foot away from you and you won't move? Officer, all right, here's how this is going to work out. To Entitled Mom, You can either move your family outside of the pavilion so that people can have room to sit, or you can leave the beach altogether.
You can't do that. We have a beach house right over there.
Then you can either move your party over there or move your party outside of the pavilion.
This is unacceptable. You can't do this to us. What is your name? I'll make sure to write a report about you.
Officer gives his name and badge number.
All right then. I will call your station and make sure you get fired.
Officer, the station is well aware of everything going on right now, ma'am, and if you fail to comply, we will have you fined and removed from the premises, whether your house is right here or not. Entitled Mom was having none of this, so instead of leaving like any other person would do, she grabbed a sandwich from one of the bags she brought and threw it right at the officer. The officer, without hesitation, grabbed her and cuffed her. The other members of her family were growing mad at the officer for arresting her, but they didn't fight back. Officer, this is your last warning, ma'am. Either take your party elsewhere, or I will bring you back to the station. You're very lucky I'm not putting you in my police car right now. Entitled Mom finally cooperated and was released. She didn't go completely free, however, as her and all of the adults in her family were fined. She was fined the heaviest, though, for also assaulting the officer. The family grumpily grabbed their stuff and left. The officer didn't leave until he knew they were gone. A couple days later, a law was put in place that no partying of any kind would be allowed on the beach because of Entitled Mom. A patrol officer has also been sent to inspect the pier every once in a while each day to make sure that Entitled Mom and her family weren't doing this again. And so far, since family friend, her family, and my family have been down there, they haven't. But they're still extremely loud and blasting their music on the beach and inside their house. That's my Entitled Parent story. Hope you guys enjoyed. Speaking of the beach, do you guys like going to the beach or not? Please let us know.
Oh, I just love the beach and stealing things from people while they're in the water.
Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend not to spit in our food? We're currently not speaking because of this issue, since I find it gross and my boyfriend can't see my problem with it. I do most of the cooking in our relationship, which I am fine with. However, occasionally my boyfriend will want to do some cooking together / do some baking. We do a lot of activities together, especially now we're both home a lot more. The one thing I cannot stand is a habit he has when it comes to food. If my boyfriend thinks something is too dry or needs a better consistency, he will use his own spit and put it into the food. For example, the other day we were icing homemade cookies and I caught him thinning out the icing mixture by spitting inside the bowl and mixing it in. This has been an issue for some time, so he tries to hide it whenever he does it from me. But every time I catch him, I just find it gross. His reply is to shrug and tell me that I get more out of his saliva in my mouth when we kiss anyway, so it shouldn't be a big deal and makes literally no difference. I've pleaded with him to use water, but he says that the texture isn't the same and has pointed out that if I can't tell the texture is different, surely it doesn't matter that it's not water anyway. I know that in a way he's right, and it's not like I complain about his spit when we make out, but something about it being mixed with food just grosses me out. Am I the jerk for not wanting my boyfriend to spit in our food when we cook together? Edit. My boyfriend doesn't cook regularly, so he isn't serving this to anyone but me and himself. He has made disgusted comments about serving staff spitting in customers' food before, so I know he finds other people's spit unhygienic. Words cannot even express how grossed out I am right now.
Oh, come on, Mr. Reddit. Nothing wrong with a bit of spit now and then.
Do any of you guys think that that's okay? If so, please let us know. Sure, we'll take that aluminum panel off your fence. Background. My parents bought a property on the beach because it's their happy place and they didn't want to stay at hotels anymore. The place is an older property that needed a lot of love, so we've been renovating it for a good year in our spare time. Our neighbor is an older lady who runs the small motel next door. From the very beginning, she's been quite an annoyance, constantly doing and saying manipulative things as favors to make us feel like we owe her something, which usually ends in her being allowed to use parts of our property. Fun fact, an inspector that was checking on the renovations once saw her coming towards him and quipped, "Here comes trouble." So the main story involves the side of our property that we share with her. There's a fence that she built and a small alleyway between the fence and our house, which is ours, and has a hose/shower area for when you come back from the beach and want to get the sand off of you. As part of the renovations, my dad had some small aluminum panels put on our side of the fence so that the users of the shower could have some privacy. The panels are not visible from the neighbor's property and are completely unobtrusive. Neighbor sees them while passing by and freaks, frantically calls and texts my dad, begging for a call back and saying it is an emergency. My dad makes time to call, assuming the hose might have broken or something. Nope, just the neighbor throwing a hissy fit over the panels.
Take them down,
she insists. My dad is a very busy man and has already had enough of my neighbor's constant annoyances. Her claiming an emergency just for these panels finally made him snap. The malicious compliance. My dad, the amicable man he is, agrees to take the panels down. As part of the renovations, he also has a gate put in front of the small alleyway area. This is not good for my neighbor because she has made an agreement with my father to use our hose so that her guests could rinse themselves off when coming back from the beach. This precious hose is now behind a locked gate, the key for which my neighbor will not be seeing. On top of that, my father put a chain in front of the parking area of our house, which she was using as extra space for her guests, and where our trash cans are kept. Trash cans, which said neighbor was using to throw away her extra trash. Now our neighbor will have to pay extra for a better water plan for her motel, something she was well aware of and trying to avoid, as she had previously told my dad about the numbers for water plans on her property versus ours, and possibly pay for extra trash cans for her trash. My dad is a very patient man, and it's very hard to get him angry, but once you do, you're gonna regret it. Am I the jerk for not wanting my parents to be a part of my daughter's life? When I was 18, my parents kicked me out of the house after I got my girlfriend pregnant. To them, it was shameful, and they completely cut me out of their lives and my family's money. My girlfriend and I managed on our own after my son was born, but it was a struggle for years. We were living paycheck to paycheck and constantly stressed about money. My girlfriend's parents helped out when they could and were the best grandparents to our son. By some miracle, we managed to graduate from college, even with work and raising a child. Now we're both 32, been married 6 years, living in our own home with our 13-year-old son and our 4-month-old daughter. I haven't seen or spoken to anyone in my family except my cousins in years. 2 weeks ago, my mom sent me a friend request on Facebook and also messaged me. She sent this long message about how she's wanted to talk for a while now, and she apologized for the way they treated me. She and my dad were hoping we can make amends because they really want to meet my new daughter and get the chance to be grandparents. She didn't mention my son at all, ask how old he is, how he's doing, or express any interest whatsoever in also wanting to see him, just my daughter. I messaged her back and vented about all the hardship and obstacles my girlfriend and I had to deal with to get to where we are, and how hard it was that I didn't have my parents' emotional support through what was the most difficult time of my life. Sure, their money would have made things a heck of a lot easier, but I get that money shouldn't be handed to us, but I feel the least they could have done was be there for me instead of erasing me from their lives. I said they don't get to walk back into our lives, and I don't want to hear from them again. I blocked her after that. A few days ago, one of my cousins mentioned my parents and said they're telling everyone I'm refusing to let them meet their granddaughter. My cousin knows about everything, but he thought it was still petty to be that way when they clearly regret what they did and want to be in my life now, and I can't allow a grudge to prevent them from being grandparents. My wife and I talked this over, and she feels the same way I do, but will support it if I want them around. It really feels they only care now because we're older and the hard part is over. And honestly, my parents have always been extremely judgmental over everything. They're also very snobby, and I'm not 100% sure if that's what I want my kids growing up with. My cousin keeps saying I'm in the wrong here, and it's hurting my parents, and that they'll miss out on my daughter's first year of life by not being around. I'm just a little lost, and I don't know if I really am being the bad guy or not. Am I the jerk? What would you do if you were in this situation? Would you let the grandparents meet their grandkids or no?
Of course they should. They deserve it.
I work for Target, not Walmart. Several years ago now, I worked at a Target superstore as a cashier/food court worker. They didn't have check cashing, and I didn't have a working bank account. So on Fridays, I would cash my check at customer service of the Walmart Neighborhood Market, Walmart grocery store for those unfamiliar, across the street before going home. At the time, Neighborhood Market employees wore green shirts and khakis. This was before they changed to bright green vests. I was wearing my Target red and khakis, and on this day, I had forgotten to remove my Target name tag, though I usually did. This is also before any Targets in my area got self-checkouts. It was busy, and the customer service managers were running around helping cashiers, other customers, etc. So I was waiting at the desk alone. This NHM had a self-checkout directly across from the service desk. There was a lady there getting increasingly frustrated, so she starts shouting over at me. Lady,
Hey, can you help me with this?
me, looks down at my shirt and name tag, looks at lady like she's stupid. No, I don't work here, sorry.
Well, then why are you standing there?
Me, waiting for service at the service desk? Sorry, I don't work here.
Well then, where are the people who work here? Can't you help me?
I don't know. I work in the food court at Target. She keeps acting all aggravated and kicking up a fuss, so I kinda go near her and tell her how to look up produce, never touching the machine. I go back to the desk to wait. A few minutes go by, and I guess her receipt got jammed. Lady,
Hey, can you come fix this? I'm not getting a receipt.
I still don't work here. I work for Target.
Well, you helped me before.
'Cause you needed help, and I knew how to do it? I don't really feel comfortable touching their machines when I'm not using it. She continues to kick up a fuss and acts frustrated/mad for the next couple minutes, occasionally looking back at me and sighing loudly. Finally, a customer service manager who looked about 18 shows up. He goes to help me behind the counter, but I point out the lady first, who somehow hasn't noticed him. He goes over to help, but the receipt paper is jammed, and he clearly doesn't know how to fix it. He says he's just covering a break and will have to find someone to help. I sigh, just wanting to get off my feet after a long day of retail, and then proceed to give the kids step-by-step instructions on how to fix it, while the lady glares at me like I'm the devil. I had been a CSM for the NHM on the other end of town over a year and a half prior to this story. Could I have helped her? Probably, but I didn't feel like popping the front of their machine open and messing around with the insides. Also, I didn't work there, wasn't getting paid. Am I the jerk? My girlfriend won't stop buying jars. I told her she needs to stop it, and this is out of control. My girlfriend of 2 years and I moved in together in January. I'm 28 and she's 27. Everything is going great, except we keep fighting over her obsession with buying jars. It started in the kitchen. She bought all of these glass jars and containers to keep all of the food in, like rice and lentils and things are all in these glass jars she got, instead of in the cabinet in the normal box. Also, these big plastic things for cereal. I asked her why keeping it in the box/container it comes in isn't good enough, because I thought this was really weird. She says she likes how they look, and I said I didn't, and she said also that she's worried about bugs and that sealed jars keep things fresher. Also, she buys things in bulk bins to save money, and she doesn't want to keep rice in a grocery plastic bag, which, okay, that's fair. I can see how that might get annoying. I still think it's a lot of work and a waste of money to buy all of these jars, but I decided, whatever, I guess I have to compromise. Also, I think it looks sort of like we live in a mad scientist lab in a horror movie with all these things in jars, but whatever. But the last straw was today. I got home from work, and she had somehow ordered all of these little jars that are now on the shelf above the toilet with all kinds of bathroom things in them, like the Q-tips and cotton balls and floss picks and things are now in these glass jars. Q-tips and cotton balls don't come in bulk bins. I don't understand why she's wasting money on these jars when we have a medicine cabinet where you can keep those things just fine in the packages they come in. I told her that I didn't like the jars and that I didn't want my house full of containers I don't see a purpose for, and that I don't want her buying any more. She says she was just trying to keep things organized and looking nice, but I don't think it looks nice to have a bunch of Q-tips on a shelf over the toilet, and that it's a waste of money. And I told her that I think she is just getting out of control, and she got upset and said that she didn't do anything wrong and was just trying to be nice. But I still don't understand how buying so many pointless jars is nice. Am I the jerk? Don't litter, folks. You might find yourself at the receiving end of my devious father. This was many years ago, when I was around 5, 23 years ago. My house was on a lower class side of town, mostly of more poor folks and retirees who had lived there before it went downhill. Our backyard butted right up against an alleyway that was a constant source of problems. As an example, we had a 15-foot diameter trampoline stolen from our backyard. This thing had been rusted together, so I can only figure they popped it up on its side and rolled it away like a big tire. Anyways, back to the story. The house across the alley from us was a duplex kind of a thing, and the landlord would rent to literally anyone. One guy he rented to was a fairly prolific criminal who ran his gig literally out of his kitchen window. Cars would pull up through the alley into the yard/parking, hands would move back and forth, and the car would drive away. This guy legit had a drug drive-through. It didn't take long for my parents to find all kinds of undesirable trash migrating its way into our yard. Needles, burned spoons, broken pipes, and who knows what else. My parents were worried about my dumb 5-year-old self getting into something or hurting myself with something that could decidedly harm me. My mother was a nurse before being disabled in a severe car accident and had been infected with hepatitis C while working at the hospital due to a needle that had been missed, so she was super worried about this for me as well as a handful of other kids in the neighborhood. Conversations with the landlord, including gathered evidence, made no difference. He didn't live there. Why did he care? Eventually, my parents tried to call the cops. The local PD was not helpful. They said they couldn't investigate or even send out a car on someone's word. This wasn't our first problem with the local cops either, after having our cars and other things broken into or stolen. They told my parents to write down license plate numbers, and if any matches a known felon or someone with a warrant, they would investigate. So my mother sat at the window for a full day and wrote down every plate she could see, hiding carefully the whole time. She ended the day with over 100 plates. That's how busy this guy was. We faxed, remember, 90s, the numbers along with a letter explaining what the numbers were for and who we had spoken with to the PD. Nothing happened. After several weeks, they called back and were told there were no matches of any kind. After another week of the problem simply getting worse, my father decided to take matters into his own hands. One night, with no moon, he sneaks into the driveway and throws roofing nails he had bought the previous day all into their area, hundreds of them. We watched for weeks as seemingly every tweaker in town would stop and almost immediately have to fix flats. Evidently, either business dwindled so much or the renter figured out someone was messing with them. Both, that they finally moved. The landlord spent over 2 weeks of having cleaning crews and the like over, throwing out huge mounds of garbage and repair crews to fix damage that I later found out was caused by the renter. It seems they trashed and stripped the place before disappearing some night without us noticing. The moral here? Not really one exactly, except for maybe the landlord. Be more selective who you let live in your house, maybe? Edit. I should clarify, the driveway was dirt, gravel, and tufts of grass, so these nails were not obvious and difficult to see, let alone pick up. My father specifically bought brown-colored ones.
If you enjoyed this video, we've got another one you're going to love. It just popped up on the screen, so come watch it and we'll see you when you get there. And huge shout out to Daksha, our newest supporter on Patreon. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Join as a channel member today, or join our Patreon, and we'll give you a special shout out in our next video. And if you'd like us to make a special video for you or a loved one, come visit us on Fiverr, link pinned in the comments below.